We already know they're going after veterans. They're going after anybody who doesn't have white skin. They don't give a shit. Now they're going after active duty military personnel simply because they are not white. It just happened in Norfolk, Virginia. A Navy chief, Chief Marquez, posted a video explaining that one of his sailors, who is Hispanic, was in full Navy uniform, was only 2 miles away from the naval station, the Norfolk Naval Station, one of the biggest naval stations on fucking planet Earth. Okay. Leaving a parking lot, gets pulled over by Norfolk PD, who sounds like they're in league with ICE. And they tell this Hispanic sailor that they're stopping him because he has tinted windows, which isn't a primary offense in Virginia. Okay, they can ticket you for the windows if they test it and they already pulled you over for speeding or running a red light or whatever, but it's not a primary offense. It's just like in California, not wearing a seatbelt eventually became a non-primary offense. You couldn't be just pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt. So they told him, quote, "Your window tint is too dark." And the sailor took out the glove box from the store that put on the tinting with the report about what grade of tinting was on the car, and it was under the legal limit. Just as he produces the paperwork, here comes ICE right behind the Norfolk cop. They claimed they had reasonable suspicion that the sailor was undocumented because of his appearance. How is somebody? Why do you think an illegal alien would be walking around dressed as a Navy sailor in uniform? That's not making much fucking sense, is it? Not only is he in uniform, I'm sure if you're in uniform, you got to wear your dog tags. I still wear mine. Okay? He had his military ID card on him. ICE told him, "You're brown, not good enough." They detained him till somebody brought his passport, his U.S. passport. Because being in a military uniform outside of a naval station with a lawful ID card, you can get on a fucking plane with the goddamn 9/11 rules from TSA with a military ID card. It's not a good enough for ICE. Why? Because he wasn't white. This sailor's chief put up the video, and he's now telling every Hispanic and Latino sailor to carry your passport everywhere, including in uniform, because apparently the uniform and a DoD, Department of Defense military ID card is no longer legal identification, according to ICE. So the big crime they needed to stop, fucking window tint. Window tint. Jose Orlando Hernandez, the former president of Honduras, which was just talking about a few minutes, imported tons of cocaine. They're fucking with this Navy sailor, this kid, under tinted windows. I'm sorry, we don't think you can be in America because you have tinted windows, which are legal under the they're not illegal until they block too much light, which I agree with. It's a safety mechanism. You shouldn't be tinting the windshield, and the you still have to see out of them. If you're a forward of the B pillar of the car, you can't have like blackout tinting on the windows. No, that's just a that's not even a law enforcement opinion. That's just a traffic safety opinion. Okay. So was he picked up doing horrible crimes? Was he stealing all the SNAP money? Was he eating all the cats and dogs? Were they committing all the crimes and committing all the murders and raping the white women? No, he was driving with fucking window tint that was legal in the state he was driving, in a Navy uniform, with a military ID card, 2 miles away from the gate of the naval station. Now, here's the problem with the pretext. Okay? This Navy sailor, find a good lawyer. Call Legal Eagle, call somebody. Get a lawyer. Get a good lawyer. And start screwing the shit up. Remember I told you guys we need to get on juries? Okay? This case just decided for me. I'm reapplying for the grand jury. I'm going to apply for both county and state. I'm going to try to get on a grand jury because when this case, when another kid gets stopped by ICE and he drops the ICE guy in the head with a punch and knocks him cold, I'm going to be on the grand jury going, don't indict him. He had no reason to contact him. Okay? You can't make up a contact, then use violence in the arrest when the guy defends himself and he punches you in the fucking jaw and you're unconscious in the street. That's your problem. That's not the sailor's problem. Get on the juries if it make it past the Patet juries in case it gets past the grand jury. Vote no in the jury box. It's time for some legal civil disobedience. All the way and up to and including jury nullification. Because, people laughed at me for years and laughed at a lot of people when we try to tell you, no, jury nullification is a real thing. Well, it just recently happened. Everybody found out about that. Everybody celebrated and they went, yeah, that's what juries are supposed to do. You're right, but we got to be on them for it to work. Okay? Don't ignore your jury summons. Get on grand juries if you're a professional and you have a good resume or a CV. Get on those juries. Okay? Because when these bullshit cases come up, somebody has to put a stop to this. Yes, the Supreme Court did approve this rat shit. Yes. Like I said in the last video, just a couple minutes ago, we don't have any branches of government working properly right now, including the judiciary, because the Supreme Court is so fucked up. Because Chief Justice Roberts is a fucking sellout. Okay? I don't think Jeannie Thomas is the only one who has swastikas on her pajamas. Okay, here's the problem with the pretext stop. Virginia law explicitly says you can't do this scratchy minor shit anymore and make arrests and do searches of vehicles and yada, yada, yada. Okay, one of those things is window tinting. Now, of course, if you pick them up on radar and they're doing, 48 miles an hour in a school zone and they also have tinted windows, get them for both. I don't have any problem with that. But you can't pull them over because that's what the state law says. But state law says you can't pull them over for the primary offense of window tint. Okay? Smell of weed doesn't work. Moxnick's equipment issues don't work anymore. In Virginia, there's a lot of things they straightened out because they were getting abused. How window tint turned into a 90-minute detention where you had to go get your passport to prove you shouldn't be sent to a black site in Louisiana. Window tinting. Not raping the white women. Window tint. And there was recently another one. I think I remember this. There was another one in Virginia. Nazario, maybe the name. I'd have to look that up again. If somebody knows it, they can drop it in the comments. Another case of a service member being of color being treated like a criminal simply because he wasn't white. And then now, I worked in the military. I actually worked with the military, obviously, but when I was a civilian cop, I worked in a military town. Okay. I cannot imagine arresting soldiers, sailors, Coast Guardsmen, um, all the intelligence services that were there. I couldn't imagine just grabbing somebody off the street and going, "Well, I'm going to call the NS and we're going to have you deported because I don't believe that a non-white person can wear a military uniform it actually be real." And then deny that their military issued ID card isn't good enough. And this comes after they beat the shit out of the veteran in California. And he was telling them, shit, all my ID, including my passport's in my truck. Pepper spray, taser, knee in the neck, kicks in the body. I'm sorry, my car is 150 feet away. Can I get my ID and show it to you? And this is a state where they threw out 647E in the 1970s that made it a law, made it a crime not to present ID when requested. You're not required to have ID when you go out jogging. That's exactly why the court threw it out. They thought it was insane. You're literally saying you're swimming on the beach. You walk out of the water, you walk off the high tide line, and you can be arrested because you didn't have ID on you. Okay, they threw that shit out 50 years ago in this state. This guy got his ass kicked this month for not having an ID card on. Why? How can you possibly be illegal here when you're not white? And I'll tell you white dummies out there something. If you think they're going to stop at black and brown, let them get what they want, which is nearly a possibility. They'll destroy the whole country before they get what they want. Okay. That's how bad these policies are. They're literally destructive. But let's say for a thought experiment that it actually gets all black and brown people thrown out of the country. You don't think these Goombas are going to find a new target? Yes. Yes, they are. Remember, racism is a subcomponent of tribalism. The tribe are a bunch of billionaires and their little acolytes in a political cabal to literally fuck over 325 million other people. Why? They're aggrieved they're not richer. They're billionaires and they're pissed they're not wealthier. Get on juries. Apply for the grand juries. We have to start doing something or we are going to lose this country. And damn it, America is still worth fighting for. As fucked up as we can be, it's still worth fighting for. I'm not letting it go. I get so sad sometimes over this stuff. I really question what the hell I did in my life when I was a young man. Then I remember, yeah, I remember why I did all this shit. I remember when I went after the craziest people on earth, some of the most dangerous people, and I did it willfully. It's because it's worth doing. If we don't, we'll end up like a complete crime state, like Libya was under Gaddafi or Iraq under Hussein. Thank you, Pamela. I appreciate when people say thank you for your service, and I do appreciate it. If you want to support veterans and you have the means, find a local veterans organization that supports homeless and disabled veterans, or disabled and or homeless veterans. I especially when I worked with a big tech company, I was making a lot of money. I gave a lot of money, especially when they were building the new housing unit in the city. To house homeless vets. That's another thing we have to work at. We need different people in Congress so they will fund the veterans administrations more. Okay, screwing over the veterans and not giving them the care, especially the mental health care, is absurd. You'll happily spend the money to go to war, but you won't spend a fraction of the money taking care of the wounded troops when they come back home. That's wrong. And it's especially bad for the Guamanian soldiers. Yes, Guam is America. Some red hat rubes forget what America is. It's Guam, the Marshall Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico. A lot of people from Puerto Rico in the army. Um, uh, the territory or state with the highest per capita enlistment rate is Guam. Okay, if you're Guam and you go back home and you want mental health care, the nearest facility is Hawaii. Okay, we need better people in Congress who stop shining on veterans and actually take care of them. Okay, you're willing to spend trillions of dollars, not even doing anything in Iraq and Afghanistan. Okay, because we lost both. We didn't win anything. We didn't win in Libya. We didn't win in Somalia. We didn't win in Djibouti. Nobody won anything in this round. Okay, we just decided to meat grinder. As long as we fought a war over there and the casualties were over there, nobody gave a shit. And that was worth trillions of dollars. Why aren't we spending the money needed to take care of the veterans? Okay, so thank you for your service. I appreciate that, but let's turn our thank yous into real action. Let's make sure we support our local veterans groups. And when we vote for Congress people, and I've been telling you, what questions are we going to ask the new round of candidates? Are you actually going to fucking taking care of veterans, or are you going to continue to shit on them and lie to them? Hell, we had a Marine colonel got his veteran packet and his military packet, put on his Marine Class A's, went to the hospital up north, sat down in front of the hospital and put a gun to his head and blew his head off. If a colonel in the Marines can't get care, what the hell are the lower enlisted going to do that are hurt? That was my little sidetrack into taking care of veterans. But this story that's coming out of Virginia is horrific. Horrific. We're pulling you over because you are not white. We don't believe you're in the Navy, even though you're right near a Navy station in a Navy uniform with a military ID cards and probably wearing his dog tags. Because you don't want to get caught on certain duties without your dog tags. That's actually required. And you can get an Article 15 for not having them on. Like in West Germany, you're required to wear them at all times. We had an exception when we're working undercover because our real names are on our dog tags. So even our dog tags were false. I was Anthony Martin for a year and a half. That's not my real name. I had a military ID card, everything. It was all false. Okay. My ID card, it's not like we printed them up. We actually went to the personnel office and they made me a real ID under a false name. Okay. But if you think that's like a regular thing, no, no, no. We have to fill out paperwork to get the personnel office to do that for us. Like they know, their colonel knows, our colonel knows, our colonel has to sign for it. Okay. So, thinking that a DOD card isn't a legit ID card, an Army, Navy, Marines, Space Force, even though I don't think we need a Space Force, I think the Air Force was doing a wonderful job in the National Reconnaissance Observatory in the NSA. Space Force is just a way to spend more money. Um, the, the, the sailor needs to make a complaint, needs to file a lawsuit. The complaint will be with the under human rights, DOJ policy violations. Are you supposed to suborn a local police officer into doing a false purposed traffic stop so you can simply arrests the person with no probable cause whatsoever, where is that written in the policy book? Because that's what gets you burned in court a lot. It's not just the law, it's your own policies. Did you follow your own rules? Because every department has it. We had a rule book in the military police. We had another rule book in MPI, military police investigation. We had a big rule book in the criminal investigation division, the CID. When I got to a civilian department, we had a big book. It had chapters. The chief loved to write new rules. And we named the rules after the person who caused him. Like I had a rule in the city department. It was because I ran a car off road and ran over some bushes chasing down a robbery suspect, and I did quite a bit of damage to the car. But I caught the robbery suspect, so in the end, I didn't give a shit. But then he forbade us for doing that unless it was a exigent circumstance, because he didn't feel my thing of catching a guy we've been looking for months, who's probably responsible for at least a half a dozen armed robberies, wasn't an exigent enough circumstance taking down an armed robbery suspect with a gun on him. That wasn't important enough, I guess, in his mind. He was a liability nut job anyways. He didn't manage risk, he feared risk, and he some of his decisions were really foolish. Alice says ICE acts like they have no rules. They are lawless and rewarded for it. Yes, and yes, you would be correct. They're not following police procedures. Okay. If we ever did shit in the military police or CID, or when I was at city PD, later on, if we did any of the shit you're seeing in the video that the ICE guys are doing, oh, we'd have been fired. They'd have sent our case. They'd have done a criminal referral to the DA's office or to the state attorney general. We'd have been in trouble. Yeah. Like firing those 40 millimeters at people and not bouncing them off the ground. The manufacturer instructions said this is not a direct attack weapon. The same thing with the big fire extinguisher pepper sprays, which they're literally shoving 6 inches away from people's face and pulling the trigger on these big canisters. The little small ones, that's not a really big issue. The chance of like serious permanent injury is very low. Okay, hurts like hell because like to carry the best pepper sprays, the strongest pepper sprays, we had to be sprayed by it. So we know what we're doing to other people. I had it done to me twice. Plus, I went through CN training in the Army. It's absolutely painful. Okay, so when I pepper sprayed somebody, I knew what I was doing to them, so I absolutely made sure he needed to be pepper sprayed. But this whole thing with a giant propellant canister, the again, the manufacturer says this is not a close range weapon. This is something that's supposed to be deployed at a minimum of 15 feet. And now they're walking up to people's faces and going squirt with this big cloud disperser. Okay. If we would have done that, we'd have definitely been disciplined. There's no way, 100% a chance of getting in trouble. Like we had these things in the Army, they were kind of like stuff that was left over from the like 60s and 70s, but we basically had like the squirters you have in the fire departments, the water pump, when you put the tank on your back and you got the hose and you got the pump, and it's when you dig up, when fields or woodland burns, you got to dig up the soil and find hot spots for sometimes days, and you hit them with a little squirter to make sure the ashes are put out. We had those, but they had tear gas in them. Okay, and we used water in them to train so we wouldn't nuke each other. But even with those, like we had to spray it above their heads at a range of at about 20 feet, and we basically had to do a big sweeping arc and let the material fall on them. We couldn't walk up to somebody and start squirting, because it like those big squirt guns that kids play with, or I played with my kids when they were little, chasing them around the yard with the big squirt guns. They work like that. Okay, but we couldn't directly engage a crowd or a suspect with those like you're seeing in the videos with ICE. So yeah, ICE They're not acting like they have no rules. I think they've been told they have no rules. Okay. And there's always rules. There's always regulations. In the military, there's always a rule of engagement. Okay. Like working on the other kind of teams. It's not like we're all not armed. We have access to heavy weapons when needed. But the rule is, and we were told flat out, if you shoot somebody that doesn't have a gun in their hand, you're toast. You're toast. I mean, it's like the old Firefly episode with the captain of the Firefly. If I shoot you, you're going to be awake, armed, and looking at me. So basically, that was the rule in CID. If you shoot somebody, you better have the most righteous shoot on the planet, or you're in trouble. So think about this. Think about the ethical situation we're in. We're telling people if you're not white, you literally have to have your passport in your pocket, even if you're in a Navy uniform, even if your passport is 100 feet away in your vehicle. If you don't literally have your passport on your person, not only can you be detained, but you can be detained. They could use violent force in your arrest, and you could literally be thrown in a cell. No phone call, no notification of family. Of course, we're blowing our own and international rules out of the water lately. Yeah, definitely. I was talking about that in the last video, just last hour. Yeah, we're whacking people on boats because we think they maybe somehow be drug smugglers. Um, that's absurd. And I said in the last video, I'll repeat it right now. We're not engaged in the lawful rules of conflict. We're engaging in state-sponsored murder because Hegseth thinks it's cool, brah. Do you feel me, brah? Kinetic, brah. And Stephen Miller, the evil vampire in the background, the evil Nazi vampire in the background, is whispering in dear leader's ear, telling him that this is all legal, this is all right. Because Bondi's not going to do a damn thing. I mean, the Navy personnel literally start missiling schools and hospitals knowingly in Venezuela, and Bondi will not say one word. Half of Congress will not say one word. That's what I said last video. We have 3 branches of government, all of them not working, with the only exception of the district court level and the judiciary. Supreme Court isn't working. Supreme Court's lost their direction, lost their values. They are now making political decisions on behalf of not a political party, but a political figure. And that political figure is a dementia patient with malignant narcissism and sociopathic tendencies. And to use layman's terms, I think he gets off on the violence. He thinks it's cool. And he thinks, like many other knuckleheads, no, he's telling you that he thinks he can stop a market, a drug trade market, where we are the majority consumer. We consume more drugs than anywhere else on earth, with the exception of probably China, because they have so many fucking people. We love drugs in America. We are the consumer base for the drug market, the global drug market. I read an article the other day that cocaine is more popular now in Europe than it was in the 80s. We've been at this drug war since Nixon. We made it an international affairs issue since Nixon and Reagan. The military has been involved in the drug war since at least the late 70s that I personally know about. I was involved in the 80s in the Army in the drug war. And I told you before, I knew the guys who were in Colombia blowing shit up. I knew the guys who were working level 1 in Spain and Italy and in West Germany. Okay. I knew all the agents at my level and all the supervisors that were in 2 countries. Okay. These were all military personnel. That's why I laugh when someone says, "Whoa, posse comitatus is against the rule that says it's against the law to use the military to enforce civilian law." We've been doing it at scale since Reagan. Okay, but even under Reagan, this is how it's so crazy now. Even under Reagan, Reagan would have never authorized us just randomly opening fire on boats in the open seas. Now, this is the problem that scares me is I think the Caribbean is just it's not about invading Venezuela per se. We'll do that if they think there's a political win out of it, like distracting from the Epstein files, or all the people he's pardoning who are massive criminals who were public officials who took bribes, or massive drug dealers. Okay. He's pardoned the Silk Road guy and Hernandez, the narco state terrorist. I don't even think it's about oil. I really don't. Okay. Because even if we wanted Venezuelan oil to come online, you're talking like minimum 5 to 7 years because their oil infrastructure is so decayed. It's going to take forever to get them fucking back online. Now, as soon as Venezuela is back online, guess what happens? American oil companies and American oil rigs start losing money. They're barely making money now. Watch Mr. Global, Matt Rudolph on Substack here or YouTube. He's been explaining a lot about how the oil rigs work and the prices work. Oil's dipping right now. Oil rigs are closing already, and it's a flux. It goes up and down. Sometimes it crashes. Sometimes it goes way up. It crashed due to over speculation in the 90s. Skyrocketed at the Gulf War, but oil as the reason, it may be a stupid reason, I grant you that, Courtney, but it if you got Venezuelan back up to scale, because it actually is like America, it's got a ton of natural resources. If you were to get those pipelines and rigs and seaport connections all levied up and them flooding the global market like they used to before Chavez and Maduro ran that country into the ground and all their infrastructure into the ground, you would probably see a minimum, a massive drop of prices. Oil rig closures in the United States, oil rig staff personnel being laid off, all the downstream stuff. Could it be they want to ensure it doesn't come back online? It's not coming back online. Putin is not interested in helping. Saudi Arabia is not willing to help them. China, plays hand waving gestures toward Venezuela and some other countries in South America. But a lot of the South American countries, even the whack job country that Maduro's running, they don't want to deal with China because everything China does is a debt trap. And that was proven like in Bangladesh and other places where the China literally trapped those countries. They build them a seaport they can't afford. They give them a loan. They default on the loan. Now the seaport's the Chinese. Now the seaport's a strategic base for the Chinese military. Okay. South America goes, yeah, America can be a pain in the ass, but the last thing I want is a Chinese-owned seaport on my coast with a Chinese warship pointing guns at us. Okay. And even though energy uses is going to go massively up over the next 10 years, if and this is the weird thing, if everybody got like to real high production, like if they didn't close some of the oil rigs like they did in the last couple of quarters in America, and suddenly Putin went, okay, I don't want to fight in Ukraine anymore. I'm done with that. Sorry, pulls his troops out. We let him sell petrol end products on the open market again, the price wouldn't be hovering. What's the price hovering today? Let me find out. What is a barrel of oil WTI going for today?
Right now, West Texas Intermediate WTI crude oil is going for about $59.24 a barrel. That's a little up from the previous day, and it's mainly because of a mix of geopolitical issues like recent drone attacks on Russian oil facilities and OPEC Plus deciding to keep their production levels steady into next year. So all of that is pushing prices up a bit.
Nobody in the market's making a lot of money at $59. Okay, some people are making money, but they're not a stripper at the strip joint. It ain't running $100 bills. Okay, and that's proof because, like what Mr. Global is saying, is they're closing oil rigs here in the United States. People are getting laid off in the oil industry right now. Okay, if Russia were to suddenly come online and Venezuela were to suddenly come online, the price would be a lot lower than $59. You could have another hyper crash like we had 30 years ago. We just had way too much speculation, way too much output around the world, and when the glut hit, the prices just boom, buried. Okay, they cratered. So, but my real fear, is they're just using the Caribbean and the missiling the boats and the double tapping the swimmers in the water. You know, in the I saw this the other day in the legal training books for the JAGs, the military officers. They talk about um, what are the rules of armed conflict. One of the examples of what not to do, because that would be a bad thing, like a war crime, is shooting the survivors of shipwrecks. What did we just do? Missile a boat, then gun down the survivors. And we're not even at war. There is no war declaration. That's something still I'm pissed about the Iraq, Afghanistan, the whole global war on terror. Congress didn't have the balls to declare war, but gave the government war powers nonetheless, and free reign to blow up anything they wanted on Earth. Like, I literally have friends that have told me that we were only in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I almost spit my beer out on the bar. I'm going, are you fucking kidding me? It was more like we were in closer to 26 countries, not 2. Christ, he didn't even know that the Green Berets have been fighting the communist rebels in the Philippine jungles for years now with the Filipinos. Okay. So what I worry about is what they're doing. This is a commercial for the Red Hat groups. See how they're bringing in the drugs? Oh, you mean those drugs like cocaine? Like Noel Castor, the comedian who used to work for Trump, says Trump and Don Jr. absolutely love cocaine. Adderall and cocaine, they're speed freaks. Not my opinion, not my knowledge. This is what he said. Okay, he used to work with these guys on the reality shows and shit. Okay, so that evil drug cocaine, which all those rich people love. Hey, I remember the 90s in a rich community. I remember seeing some of the rich boys of the town so high on cocaine they looked drunk, not like speeded out. So hammered on coke, they looked like they were alcohol drunk. Okay, we love cocaine in America. Thank you, Alice. Um, uh, so what you do is you put up the authoritarian porn and show the little you got to stamp the unclassified videos. If you are actually at war with whatever element, would you want to advertise your tactics right out of the gate while you're trying to do this massive intervention? Because if you think these tiny boats or shooting one or two of these tiny boats will put a dent in the cocaine traffic coming into America next month, you're kind of naive. Okay. Venezuela may produce, because they have a couple of places that have the right altitude, the right moisture, the right soil conditions. Those conditions to grow coca, the plant that they turn into cocaine, um, is grown only in certain places. It will only grow in certain places, and that's why in the Bolivian hills, Colombian hills, that's why it's so popular there, because it's the right everything to grow it. Now there may be a tiny bit of cocaine grown and transported out of Venezuela, but I'm talking a tiny part of the market, like sub 1% of the market. Okay. But remember, he originally said it was phenol, which every analyst under the sun that I've watched and every informer intelligence agency and DE agents I've seen, that's China chemical precursors landing in Mexico, ending up in the cartel's labs, and they're making the phenol. Okay. By the way, we legally make phenol. Did you guys know that? It's a surgical drug. I just had surgery a couple of months ago. Guess what kept me under for 8 hours? Phenol. Man, talk about being high when you wake up. Holy shit. I was tripping balls. And then they started giving me Diluid, Oxycontin, and 2 muscle relaxers and a full IV stream of acetaminophen when I was in the recovery room. Yeah, I was pretty spaced out. So, like cocaine is used to be used for nasal surgeries and as a topical anesthetic. All the canes. Novocaine is a cousin to cocaine. There's cocaine, there's heptacane, there's septicane. This is how the molecules line up and how big the molecule is. Okay. So I said this before. If they really wanted, if they really think phenol and cocaine are that much of a threat, they have to start committing murder over it. Then why not teach people better, provide them better education so they have a better opportunity, give better health care, and especially better mental health care as automatically as part of healthcare. Stop telling us our brain and our teeth aren't part of healthcare. Germany doesn't do that. Norway doesn't do that. Okay. And this is the sad thing about addiction. And that's why you always keep your empathy, especially when you work the street. You got to keep your empathy. Okay. A lot of the drug addicts, and I mean a giant portion of the drug addicts are self-medicating over medical issues, pain issues, and mental health issues. Okay. You really want to take a dip in cocaine usage or the risks caused by street dealt phenol? Then make your healthcare system better place. Because what you're doing now isn't going to touch the market in the least bit. If you think blowing up 5 boats is even going to raise the price of a gram of cocaine next month, you're a fucking idiot and you're so naive. I don't know what to do with you. We actually went to, this is absolutely true. I was in a meeting when I worked on the West Coast and I was on a DEA task force. I was in the Army and everybody was there. It was a big confab. A couple of the people that were there were from LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department. And one of them was the tactical sergeant. What we would call in the Army MPs are basically our platoon sergeants. And he said, we have a study that we commissioned with the Department of Justice of California and the Department of Justice of America. And we estimate there is enough cocaine in Los Angeles's and Miami's warehouses alone. Just the warehouses that are used for drug storage, and they're just a tiny part of the whole warehouse market. Okay. Just 2 cities had enough cocaine to supply every cocaine user any amount of cocaine they wanted for 5 years. You think blowing up 4 boats, 5 boats, 6 boats are going to fucking put a dent in the cocaine market? That's not fanciful. That's idiotic. And this is the thing. And when we were in Afghanistan, and I confirmed this with my colonel friend who's a Green Beret. I don't think he was in Afghanistan. He spent most of his time in Iraq, but trust me, he knows stuff. Um, um, he confirmed with me, and I go, was it real? No, he was in Afghanistan. That's right, because that's when he got in the sniper shootout with his team. He had a call on the A-10. So yeah, he was in Afghanistan for a while. So he was overseas like 31 times. He was here having dinner with us, and then boom, he was back somewhere overseas doing work, and then boom, boom, boom. That would happen for 8 years. But he confirmed that we detailed an entire Marine division to go uh, uh, eradicate the poppy, therefore eradicate the heroin distribution trade in Afghanistan, and we totally failed. Not just failed doing it, like we almost turned every farmer in Afghanistan against us because that was taking away all their money. And so what, when the army shows up for 10 minutes and says, you can't grow that plant? Well, as soon as the army leaves, well, here comes the Taliban. Where's our plants? See the problem? So yeah, even with a fucking badass Marine division, we couldn't win the drug war. In a combat zone, we couldn't win the drug war. What the fuck do we think we're doing here? In the Reagan's day, closing all the mental health services was a way to save the oligarchs money. These days, the combined policies risks designed to cull our population. Yeah, I've been saying culling the herd. I've been using that expression. When that was actually Reagan as the California governor, where he dumped the mental patients on the streets. And that's a duality. Yeah, you really understand what happened there. The California laws about incarcerating somebody for a mental health reason, a psychiatric hold, was a amazingly low threshold. Like, if you didn't like your kid and you made up a small story or tipped a psychiatrist, you could get your kid institutionalized. It was not a hard process in California back in the post World War II days. It was so bad it was a civil rights problem. And it wasn't the only civil rights problem in that issue. The hospitals themselves were disgusting. A lot of them were very, very bad facilities for the patients, harmful to patients, poorly run. But the answer was fixing the healthcare system, not going ollie ollie oxen free and making every deranged person with organic mental problems or somebody with substance abuse problems that can't stop using and keeps getting into trouble. You just made that the local beat cop in the emergency room nurse's problem. And you just wiped your hands and walked away. So yeah, did he basically kill off mental health services? We did a lot more than that. He basically emptied the hospitals by refusing to fix them, because their whole Laffer curve tax policy, if we just don't tax anything, then society is all better. Well, I can tell you that we had people that were chronic homeless with serious mental health issues, and this was in the 90s, and they couldn't get help. The policy of just dumping them on the street and making it, the patrol ship's problem and the emergency rooms problem was absurd. And you're right. They did it because they didn't want to tax the wealthiest landowners and the wealthiest businesses in the state. You are correct. That's what actually happened. And it's horrible. Because not only did you let some people who are just disabled and can't really take care of themselves, that was one level of problem. Yeah, we've been defunding. I was just talking about that. Yeah, the veterans. We got to vote for better people in Congress that think that defunding the VA hospitals and closing a lot of them is in the closing the clinics, especially the clinics in remote places and rural places on rural territories, islands, that sort of thing. All that's wrong. If you want to spend trillions in the war, you better be willing to spend the money when they come back home. And obviously they don't. Obviously they don't. Why? Because we have a tax code that prints billionaires. It takes a wealthy person and turns them into an extremely obscene wealthy person. Jimmy Kimmel talked about it tonight. That's good news. That's good. He's got a big audience. Um, I did a video about that. I don't watch much late night TV anymore. I'm not really a big fan of Jimmy Kimmel. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with him. I just don't happen to watch that show. But like when he got put back on the air, oh yeah, I was sitting in front of the TV that night. So I know after his firing, his ratings have gone up a little bit. So him talking about that ICE detention is huge. That's good. Um, More people need to talk about it because it's obscene what just happened. We're literally telling you it's illegal not to be white and walk in public. This is worse than Jim Crow. At least you could walk up to the colored water fountain. Christ. Now they don't even care. If you're not white, you're guilty of something and you must be an immigrant and you must be taken away. And they keep saying it's all about deportations. It's not. It's not. Do you see the money that is being spent on detention? Building new detention, not just what was the stupid name they get? Alligator Alcatraz? Was that redneck Florida man stupid naming conventions? Oh yeah, great marketing, shitheads. You're taking people you don't even know that committed crimes and you're throwing them into Alcatraz. Do you know who we put in Alcatraz? Out on the in the bay in San Francisco? Do you know who we put in Alcatraz? The worst of the worst of the worst of the worst criminals in the United States at the time. You had to be such an asshole that the Bureau of Prisons thought it was not safe to keep you elsewhere. So they put you on a rock island surrounded by cold water off the coast in the Pacific. Now we're going to throw you in there, not even knowing whether or not you've actually committed a crime or not, or whether or not you're a U.S. citizen. Because time and time again, I keep reading how people are getting detained, arrested, and they're legal U.S. citizens, legal residents, people here on legal visas. The German guy who they threw in the tank for 6 days, I think it was 6 days, no, not proper food, not proper medicine, didn't give him his medicine. That's not important. And that's something I'm worried about for about 10, 15 years now. This generation of law enforcement, local to federal, do not give a shit anymore about in custody deaths. They're like, meh, not our problem. I tell you what, I'd rather go through 10 internal affairs investigations for using my nightstick or using my flashlight or using my gun than going through one coroner's inquest about an in custody death. Okay. Last thing I want to be investigated for is being investigated by the coroner for negligent homicide. Okay. Not providing medical care to someone obviously in need of medical care and they die in your jail. That would definitely be negligent homicide. Oh, the private prisons are even worse. Yep, you're absolutely right. There was one that was so bad that the judge threatened sanctions against not just the facility, but the company who owned it and their executives if they didn't clean up one particular place. And I think it was Arizona. Yeah, some states like Arizona, they're massively overinvested in private prisons. Prisons should never be, private prisons should not exist. Period. They should not exist. There should never be a profit motive for incarceration. Incarceration is a necessary evil to deal with a bad problem. Okay. Now, do some people deserve to be in San Quentin or the Florence Supermax in Colorado? Hell yeah. Yeah. I mean, you end up in San Quentin, you didn't steal a car. You didn't write bad checks at the felonious volume of dollar amount and number of checks. No, 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 no. You did some ugly, inhumane shit to end up in San Quentin. So you in San Quentin, you probably deserve to be there. But that does not excuse the profit motivation that's been implanted. Um, the fact that people can not just make money, but people can invest in the incarceration, and the incarceration is based on a contract with the state that says if you don't fill up the beds from your courtrooms, we charge you more money than if the bed was filled. Yeah, yeah. You fall below a certain threshold, we get a bonus. There's no saving money if crime goes down. That's what public that's the public corruption of private prisons. Let's say we fixed education, really reduced poverty, gave everybody health care and mental health, and we passed some sensible gun laws, and crime just really plummeted. We would not have any benefit of it if you have a contract with a private prison. You're screwed. You're still going to be paying all that money like the crime is out of control, because that's what their profit is set on, having a full prison. And will crime ever go away? Not 100%. No, we can do massive things. Like our crime rate is kind of embarrassing. When you look at the three most peaceful countries on earth, Denmark, New Zealand, and Japan, yeah, our crime rates are fucking embarrassing. Yes, that's another thing. They get brokers recommended. Um, and people, like, I did individual investing for a long time when the economy was a little better, coming up out of like out of the bank bailouts. When we started stabilizing, I started doing a lot of investing, and I knew some individual stocks that I could buy. Like, I have my own Series 7 desk at a brokerage firm. I'm not a licensed broker. This is not investment advice. I just know how to use the charting and the graphics since I'm a data engineer. So they gave me a desk. So I just log on to a virtual screen and I get the whole training environment. So I bought Starbucks because it was a booming company. I made a ton of money. I told my daughter, if you ever meet Howard Schultz, even though he's kind of turned into an asshole now, I said, give him a hug because he basically paid for your bachelor's degree. I caught 2 splits on the individual stock. But I knew, like, coming out of the banks, because we just injected the banks with a whole bunch of money. You can invest in the banks and make a lot of money coming out of the debt. Okay, I just thought it was immoral. I knew some of my EFTs and my pension fund. One of my pension funds are invested in the banks. I don't have any control about that. Of that, I don't have that direct control because I don't have. I'm not buying individual stocks. Um, I could invest it in Altera, and sell junk food and tobacco. That stock screamed when I was trading. I could have bought early Facebook. Um, I didn't invest in those companies because I didn't believe in what those companies were doing. Sure, I can make money. I can also make money, with hookers and blow. Do I do that? No, I don't think that's ethical. Um, so when people go out and and you're just contributing to a pension fund, you're probably going to be owning those stocks whether you know it or not. Okay. But it's up to the individual. If they're in a one-to-one situation, you got to make the moral choice. Okay. And I have a good friend who knows how to trade and stuff. And he does in the same period, he was doing a lot of his own individual trading and making some money. And we would have conversations over a beer at the brewery, like, would you put your money here in this stock? And I'd look it up and I go, no, not this company. No. He goes, "Why, you don't think the PE or you don't think the outlook is good?" I go, "No, I just don't like what they do." So would I ever buy, like, what is it, Core USA, whatever the name of the prison company, because R on the public trading desks? No, I would never put my money there. I would see no point in that because it's something that shouldn't exist in the first place. I would like to see a day where, like, every state only has one state prison and it's mostly empty. Okay? I'd much rather have that situation than a nation full of every state's got 20 private prisons and we're required by contract to fill all of them up. So yeah, I see the authoritarian porn as a problem, and I'm worried about whatever they think they're going to do next. Because remember, they knew what they were going to do before they did it. None of this is riffing. None of this is improv. Okay, I wrote in August, more than a year, that August, more than a year before the election, um, 13, 14 months before the election, I wrote a whole essay about Project 2025 and warned everybody this is their fucking blueprint to destroy America, destroy our democratic republic, turn it into a what I thought would be like a corporate feudalism system. Okay. It's now turning into an authoritarian shit show that relies a lot on communism, seizing parts. Even Reason Magazine's been writing articles about this. They're going like, what is up with Republicans and communist socialism all of a sudden? Okay. Eric Erickson, that guy, me and I don't think we agree on fucking anything. These guys are far right winger and I do not like him. I saw his podcast clip and he goes, is this socialism and communism with an R? Meaning Republicans? And I'm sitting there going, yeah, yeah, yeah. They're going East German commie. Because what they're doing with ICE is exactly what the Stasi used to do in East Germany. They didn't need warrants. They didn't need probable cause. They didn't have any rules. They could surveil you for any reason they wanted. They could detain you for any length of time they wanted. I like that. I think, Alice, I think you're onto something there. We've accomplished a good half of Project 2025 already. Yes, they're in full court press. They're blitzing the quarterback every morning. So, yeah, that first statement's true. And yes, nationalizing private companies is a new twist. Yeah, that was the twist I didn't see coming. And what really scared me, I was like, what the fuck? When they did the grabbing of the parts of Intel, AMD, and Nvidia, that was just a what the fuck are they doing moment for me, right? When they turns around days later and goes, I want 25% of the Alaska Mining Trust. What really worries about me is Trump likes to put his name on everything. Do you see it's no longer the Institute for Peace, which is a completely independent agency, it has nothing to do with the White House or the presidency. Okay, is a completely independent agencies. It's now the Donald J. Trump Institute for Peace as we go in war in Venezuela and on Main Street, USA. Okay, so he goes, I want 25% of the Alaska Mining Trust. Is it going to be the Donald J. Trump Alaska Mining Trust soon? Because that's what seems to be the pattern. And I think one of the things we have to do, because I'm thinking like I'm making this like a huge list of all these things we have to be thinking about, and like the things we have to be asking the new candidates. What will they actually try to push for when they're in Congress? I think one of the things is SOTUS decisions have to be released faster, because it could be months before we get this tariffs decision, and that means months more damage to the economy. Spinning off to a tangent with the tariffs, I was just reading an article, then I found an associated little news story about it. A recent study showed that farmers before the tariffs and losing all their soybean and corn and sorghum sales, they were already losing an average of $237.50 per acre of corn. And then we didn't guarantee their loans because Trump didn't want to do that. Then we destroyed their foreign markets, and now they're filing for bankruptcy. Even Huckabee, who used to be Trump's lackey at the White House, she's now the governor of Arkansas. She's flipping the fuck out. Farmers are in trouble in the Midwest, real trouble. And if the family farmers and the co-ops go out of business, who do you think's going to buy it up? Private equity, members of Trump's cabinet, billionaire Trump campaign donors. And what do you think is going to? How expensive do you think your grocery price is going to be after that? We financialized everything. Small farm subsidies are worth it for national security. Absolutely, 100%, 100%. Who we should not be giving money to is Cargill, ADM, Dow, Monsanto. But where do most of the farm subsidies go? To the biggest players. We should be stabilizing a robust, disaster-proof, financial downturn-proof farming community. Like I did a live video a while back, and I was talking about a guy I saw on another social media platform, a farmer in the Midwest, basically accusing the rest of the country that who did not vote for Trump, that they wanted to see him go out of business, and they're laughing at him. And I just found that ridiculous. Okay, you voted for Trump, and you shot yourself in the foot. I begged you not to do it, but you did it anyways. And then he turned around and he stabbed you right in the back. And now you want to blame me? The guy who has been pro farming, I grew up in a farming community in New England. Okay. I've been pro farming my entire life. Okay. The Farm Aid concerts, gave money to those when those started 40 years ago. We knew the farmers were in trouble decades ago. Okay. What's happening today with tariffs and financialization and not supporting them as we should, I'm afraid this is the kill shot for a lot of not just farmers, but farming communities. And then you're going to have a bunch of slave camps owned by big corporations and private equity running farms. Now you have to ask yourself, with what labor? When you deport all the black and brown people who work in farming, and that's your stated plan, who works in the corporate-owned field run by private equity? I know the answer. The red hat rubes don't like the answer. Poor white boys are going to be working those fields with a gun pointed in their back. You need to pick that corn faster, boy. That lettuce ain't going to get in that box by itself, boy. Get to work, poor white boy. In less than a year, we have screwed over our national food security, our cybersecurity, our economic security, our health security, and our data security. All true. 100% true. Like cybersecurity, I'm a techie. I'm a senior technologist. I do security things. I write algorithms. I've written a live countermeasure system to protect email systems from spammers and malware and all that stuff. Wrote it from first principles. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a real geek. The cybersecurity thing scares the daylights out of me. And if it doesn't scare you, you're living in the dark. Okay. The big signal was when they started attacking people like Brian Krebs, a really good security expert, and a really good voice for computer security. Um, when you have all these random layoffs in government, a lot of these things were IT resources, security, engineering resources for the government. So internally, we're at more risk. We're relying more on cloud providers that just get broken into anyways. And like Microsoft lost control of about every department's email to a foreign actor a while back. Um, we're under constant cybersecurity attacks. Businesses are constantly being hacked. Uh, we know who's doing it, and we're just shined on that we're doing something about the problem. If you have government layoffs where you're laying off the people who are managing live systems and keeping them secure, and the big tech companies are laying people off, who's actually doing the fucking security work? Farms are already in indentured servitude to pay for equipment leases. That's pretty close to the truth. That's a tough kind of angry statement, but it's not untrue. I was watching farmers on a 60 Minutes thing, and they're going like, "Yeah, if you think farming makes you rich, you should see my bills." And same thing for equipment. He had to replace tires early on the combine. Well, a fucking tire that big cost $20,000. If you had to replace the whole rim and wheel because it got damaged, well, double that price. Okay, yeah, farm equipment is ridiculously expensive. Yeah, at least you just know the basics. There's a lack of reality here. Big tech can't be doing massive layoffs every month. Government can't be doing massive layoffs every month, including information technology resources, and then expect to have good cybersecurity. It's incongruent. It literally doesn't make a lick of sense. Why they think they can shine us on and go, oh yeah, this is all working. Really? Really? You know, I know it's not working. I've been working a disaster recovery project for a few months now. Um, I know cybersecurity is a problem in America. I'm helping an organization recover from a problem. Okay. I know a lot of my colleagues are doing the same thing. The big firms, they're getting nailed. Banks, hospitals, city halls, um, just getting waylaid. You know, at least understand it from the news level and understand like when you get down to like a lot of these automation packages, they do work. Some of them are really good, but they also cause what I call, data snow blindness. If you're out in the winter and you're taking in too much light off the snow, your eyes will shut down. Um, like in the army, they taught you to take cardboard and just do little slits, so you only take in a part of the light when you're in the snow. Um, so your eyes stay on basically because you can overwhelm your eyes and you'll just literally stop seeing clearly. Um, what was my point there? Have some more scotch. But yeah, we do have some blindness where you're looking at a situation, you're watching all the resources that run that stuff, the human resources, we're replacing that with automation but that automation sometimes isn't fine-tuned, and it sends you so much things. It sends you too much information, like the photons coming off the snow. It's too much information for your eyes. Your eyes will react to it. Okay, not in a way you'll like. Um, uh, the biggest complaint you have out of a security operations center is dashboards firing off too many nonsense alerts. Like, it may be a conditional true, like, hey, this file doesn't have the right permission. Okay, but yeah, because we haven't corrected the underlying definition to tell you we had to change those permissions because we needed something else to work and they needed a special attribute set on the file so they could read it or do live updates to it with other processes having the file open at the same time. Something weird like that, okay? So then you get all these dashboard alerts, da, 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 and it all just becomes freaking noise. Like I'm dealing with that right now in this job, in this project, because we have new security tools, and one of the tools keeps telling me there's a botnet attack, and I'm going, okay, where's the attack? Is it on you or is it hitting our firewall? Because they're fronting us now, and the alert doesn't say it's a front, it's hitting the front and it's being stopped, or it's coming through to our firewall. So I have to log in constantly trying to get alerts for exactly. Yeah, exactly what's happening. Like I'll wake up. There's nothing there yet. Okay. All of a sudden, the bot detection comes up, and I got like 11 of them in like 15 minutes. And I'm like, oh hell, what's going on? So it doesn't tell me whether the web access firewall is stopping it or it's actually our physical firewall in our server room that's stopping it. So I have to go up, I have to log in, I have to two-phase, I have to put in the double passcode. Okay. Or security token with my fingerprint. Doot, log me in. Okay, now I'm in. Now I'm looking at the dashboard. Okay, now filter out the stuff that the security provider does to test to see whether our stuff's running right. If I remove all that, it's not 11 alerts, it's only one alert. And then when you look at the one alert that's not them doing it to themselves, it's something they stopped for us. It never even reached our firewall. So I'm like, why the fuck was this an email? So I have to go back through eventually and start tweaking these configurations to say, don't do that. Or change my emails to say, if it made it through to you and it wasn't stopped by the security provider, one hop out, then let me know about it. So yeah, we've been tearing down cybersecurity. AI is helpful. Machine learning. Remember, machine learning is part of AI. Remember, AI is the big circle. You got machine learning, natural language processors, categorizers, classifiers. Oh no worries. Um, so machine learning is extraordinarily helpful in security. AI is starting to get there, especially when it can help us do like deep queries across a whole bunch of tasks, because we can actually build an agent that says, do all this and give us these answers and really tighten down how the AI and the agent behaves. Like, say if you got a suspicious IP address, giving it all the steps, the AI agent and the LLM, all the steps to do, just like a human would do to figure out what that address is doing. Okay. Those are starting to come around, and some of them are pretty good. Okay. Doesn't come close to solving all the problems, obviously, but a lot of the wins come from um, still doing like the old school machine learning stuff, doing the term dictionaries, doing the random forests. That was a lot of what my algorithm for the email security was about. Was doing this huge weighted test um, based on all the information I could possibly gather about the connection, the IP address, the domain name, its reputation, blah 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 blah, and running it through and finding out how not just an IP address behaved, but how that local network that IP address was in was behaving. And once I could do that, I could identify data center racks or cable segments, uh, uh, or DSL segments that narrowed down the network where I could find a list of suspicious IPs, a list of compromised computers, like old Windows XP boxes that were sitting on cable networks in Germany or whatever. They were all infected and they were sending stuff out to us. So I was able to teach the machine learning by going through many reversions and getting it to the point where, yeah, it could do a really good job defending the network with a very low false positive rate, and a very low false negative rate as well. um, I think what we're being sold today and where we're being taken a little off course is they're trying to tell us that AI, meaning LLMs and agents, can do it all. That's just simply not true. Machine learning is definitely a great tool to use in a lot of these security scenarios. A lot of custom code that's just plain out, ifs, ands, else statements, in huge lists to do the right thing, is an old school tool. It still works. And AI is getting there. But what we're getting sold and what is becoming the justification for all these layoffs, whether they're public or private, is frankly a crazy mythology that AI can do everything that humans can do in the security space, and all you need is a couple of security engineers and a couple of AI engineers, and all problems are solved. That's just nonsense in my mind. And just a random thought: what we have today, AI, LLMs, agents, um, that's not anything close to AGI. That's not Commander Data in Star Trek The Next Generation. We're not talking about smart sentient machines in this generation of AI. Can it be a helpful research tool and a helpful simulation and modeling tool, and maybe help us do some repetitive tasks the way we want them? Sure. I think we're working toward that goal. Um, is it HAL 9000 or SAL 9000 from the 2001 Space Odyssey books? No, no. And anybody tries to sell you that, like a Musk has been saying for 10 years, oh, we're 16 minutes away from having a sentient machine. And fuck you, you're a liar. Yeah, that's what doing an agent in that scenario. That's exactly what a lot of people are leaning on right now. Um, because when you have like something of volume like that, and you could teach an agent like this is the exact processing. Don't free jazz anything, because basically think of an agent as a restrictor. Because a lot of the things that happen, uh, LLMs don't think; they're just gradient descents. And a lot of the errors come because they don't get all the way down to the answer. They get stuck at what's called a local minimum. It's a little dip on the way down to the valley where the answer is, and it gets stuck up there. And it totally gives you a wrong answer. It hallucinates. Like a lot of the early versions of the LLMs and the generative art stuff, I run on my own gear. Like I can run any AI I want on my new Ultra workstation. Um, they did hallucinations horribly because they weren't really good at not getting stuck in that local minimum. But the agents is exactly what helps deal with that sort of problem. And if it can't follow the process the agent tells it to do, then it can gate a lot more of the output, including saying, "Hey, I couldn't accomplish this right, so I can't give you a declared answer," something like that. So, okay, my phone is dying, so I'm gonna go back to my main point. This story in Virginia about the Navy sailor. This is just another thing we have to keep an eye out for. And it's another reason we need to get on juries. Okay. I'm going to reiterate that a lot. We need to get on juries. We need to do our civic duties. Okay. Because if you put me on a jury and it's a kid, a 19-year-old kid with a dime bag, you're going to have to convince me why we need to put another person in prison over this. Okay. Juries, if you're a professional with a good resume, a CV, get on grand juries. Okay. When they go to have you indict, you know, Letitia James over a completely bullshit excuse, you can be the person that helps put a stop to that. You can be the voice of conscience in a grand jury deliberation. Why are we indicting somebody over this? Is this really needed to keep the country safe? Someone made like $154 on a claim that doesn't really add up at all. It's not what her contract says, by the way, but the grand jury never saw that. So when you smell bullshit, then grand jury should call bullshit. So, you know, I do see a light at the very, very distant end of the tunnel, but it's, way out there and it's really small. Because the district courts have had it with Trumpianism, the federal district courts. The fact that two of Trump's attorneys um, have been thrown out by the Court of Appeals, the Federal Court of Appeals. Yeah, that's awesome news. They were completely Halligan and Haba were completely illegal appointments. Completely illegal appointments. And they tried to steal Article 3 powers away from the judiciary when they did that. Trump is literally trying to consolidate Congress's and the judiciary's powers into the Oval Office. Okay. And that would be a complete full-blown dictatorship. Okay. So when people are critical of Trump and they get indicted for political retribution, that's another thing grand juries can consider. And when you're on a patent jury, the trial jury, at the local court or the state court, jury nullification is a thing. People are figuring that out now. It's always been real. I don't know why people didn't think this was real, but it's always been real. And the jury can decide there may have been a crime here, but this is not worth prosecuting. This isn't in the interest of justice. Some other motive is present that's not the administrative of justice. Therefore, we refuse to convict. Not guilty, not guilty. We just refuse to convict. We'll pull a jury nullification. Like, if this whole thing would have turned to shit, they were right off base with this Navy sailor. What if several cars filled with Navy sailors all leaving base because everybody just got off a shift and they see these ICE guys, and ICE did what they usually do with people. They start whacking the shit out of them, and all these Navy guys get out and there's a fight. Whose fault is that? In my book, it's not the Navy sailors. So if I was on a jury, I got a young Navy sailor, young seaman in front of me, 19 years old, and he's sitting on felony charges for breaking the jaw of a cop after beating up on his fellow sailor. I'm going, who started? Were they abusing the sailor, and that's why they intervened? Were they trying to stop an unlawful arrest? Were they trying to stop just a criminal beating that had nothing to do with law enforcement? Because if you're trying to arrest a U.S. citizen and deport them for being an illegal alien while they're wearing a Navy uniform, you're not on good legal ground. You're on some pretty shitty legal soil right there. So if I'm on the jury and you try to charge another sailor because he walked over and went, bang, I don't think so, I'm going to sit in the jury and go, jury nullification. Yeah, you shouldn't have hit the cop. That was wrong. That was a crime. But I don't think convicting him serves the interest of justice or the country in any manner. I refuse to vote. And when the judge throws me off the jury, then I go straight to the press. And I tell them why I did it. Just like the people who did the jury nullification recently. They went right to the press. This is why we did it. We didn't think that they deserved, the sandwich dude. They were just going, no, this is a cockamamie case. No. And he charged him with felony charges. That's what burned the case. Is you went out of your way to several grand juries trying to convict the guy of a felony for bouncing a Subway sandwich, a soft object, off level 4 body armor. And you complain about threat and impossible injury. He threw something with the density of a sponge at you and it hit armor, and you're a victim of a felony? No. So the jury knew that because the defense brought it up. So they looked at even the misdemeanor charge, because if you can't get an indictment from a grand jury, you can only charge them with a misdemeanor. The prosecutors just can't do it by themselves. They got to get a grand jury indictment to get the felony. So they brought it back as a misdemeanor, and they looked at the misdemeanor and they went, "No, we know what you're doing. We know what you're doing." And if I was on the jury, I would have absolutely said the same thing. Absolutely. No, I don't see any point in this case. Did he do something technically wrong? It was an unlawful touching. That's 242 PC battery in the state of California. Okay, there's a battery statute in every single state and territory in the union. Okay, you just cannot roll over and lay your hands on another person, and if they didn't want you to touch them, you can't touch them. But we know the game you're playing, going to multiple grand juries and trying to get this guy indicted in a felony, when the worst thing that happened was maybe a mustard stain. Boo. And he did nothing else. He didn't, he ran him like, what, 40 steps, and they caught him, and he admitted he did it on the body camera. It was like, okay, I did it. What are you going to do? Okay. But the way the jury responded to the whole situation was beautiful, because that is part of the checks and balances. Juries are in a very, very important part of checks and balances in our governance. Okay. That's why I wish a lot of people would think differently when they're on drug trial juries. You told us the drug war was about kingpins. You just gave pardons out to the drug kingpins, but you want to put this young man in prison for a year or two over a dime bag? That doesn't make any sense. You told us the drug war was about the kingpins, and you pull people over the highway and take their money and call them a drug trafficker with no evidence of drugs. And it's been going on for 35 years. It's a revenue source for some police departments. I can't believe that. That's why I wish more juries would have woken up earlier and just gone, yeah, I get you passed a law that's saying, possession of this substance is illegal. What does it do for society to prosecute the dime bag? You're going to put the kid in jail. What he's got? 2 rocks on him. It's worth $30. We're gonna turn around and put him in state prison, and we're gonna spend $47,000 on him as an inmate for $30 worth of rock. I just wish more juries woke up to that. Because if you're not on a jury and the next sailor gets grabbed and he actually ends up in custody, on whatever charge, resisting, being independent, whatever, I see some of the federal judges putting a stop to some of this stuff, because, like I said, the federal district courts are one of the exceptions, but I still think the bulwark against corruption in the legal system is the juries. Okay, and it's obvious we need them, because the government just has decided that they can literally enforce any law or non-law, condition or non-condition, any way they see fit, with any use of force, up to and including a surface to ship missile. Okay. So once again, I'll ask you to get out and vote independent, be independent, run for local office as an independent. And until next time, please think about it.